Hi, it's Sarah Elder, and welcome to the briefing note. This is just a quick message to let you know that this is a previously unreleased episode and was recorded while the podcast was still called Elected. But don't worry, this is still a briefing note. You're just getting a somewhat vintage episode. So enjoy. Welcome to Elected, a women. Oh my gosh, a podcast for women in and around Canadian politics. I'm your host, Sarah Elder, and today joining me from the beautiful province of Ontario is Rownena Santos, a city councillor in Brampton. Hi, Rownena.
Hi, Sarah. Hi, everyone. So great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for joining me. I'm excited to chat with you because we had the opportunity to meet in real life when you were here for Federation of the Canadian Municipalities, which feels in some ways like it was months ago, but it was literally like
Just a month.
a month ago,
Yeah, about a month ago. June 12th was when I left.
Yeah, so just over a month ago, a month and a week. And when you were here, you got to experience our colossal municipal disaster.
Oh, yeah. I arrived off the plane, turned my phone on, and immediately received that emergency warning, beep, beep,
Mm.
beep, along with a whole bunch of other people saying that there's been a water main break, a major water main break. And so that was a surprise. And Mayor Jyoti had Gondek had made it as a ongoing sort of tongue-in-cheek joke throughout the entire conference. But interesting timing considering all the topics we were talking about at FCM for sure.
I know, right? A water main break right at, the time when, and then people are being asked to reduce their water consumption. And we have a conference in the city with like over 3,000 people.
Yeah, representing municipalities from around the
Yes.
country.
But I was telling someone else, I was like, in terms of people who will follow directions, I think municipal politicians are, because you you're rule followers for the most part, right? Like
Yeah,
you do what you're
yeah.
told.
And,
I think you're
and let
thoughtful.
me tell you, there was significant compassion, empathy
Yes,
for
exactly.
Mayor Gondek. And we were like, oh my gosh, to be in her shoes right now, to deal with over 3,100 delegates around
Yeah.
the country with this major crisis in her city. And she does it with such a grace. Like we were all so supportive because
Yeah.
we literally could feel her pain as she was
Yeah. Like
going
none
through
of
that.
you would want to be in that situation.
Never, never.
Yeah. Well, and that's in stark contrast with the public backlash to the situation and people's resistance to, to lower their water use. And I think that there was actually discussions this week at council around the investigation that will happen to find out, like how did this happen? Why did, right? Like what can be done?
Yeah.
Um and as well as, I think on the communication side around what could be done differently to hopefully bring people around so that there's less reluctance or skepticism
Yeah.
to take situations like this seriously, because it's not like municipal politicians in any part of the country, no matter what it is, you're not trying to make people's lives harder.
No.
Um, it's
No.
just, but I think in that kind of like the pre-COVID or the post-COVID world around like, you can't tell me what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I hear you. And so hopefully, Calgary's getting into a better place now since that disaster a month ago or that emergency situation a month ago. And, just kudos to you, Madam Premier, and team, because I think pretty much a good chunk of women who attended FCM last month came and walked to your shop. I'm wearing my political animal with a tigress on the front, the shirt, amongst other things that I bought at your shop. So, women empowerment was all over the place at FCM, including in some of our motions.
Yes, it was. Well, and also, I mean, it's before we started recording, we started chatting about your own Ontario's own natural disaster that happened yesterday. Um, with
Yeah.
the flooding and the I I would imagine the fallout from that, like people's homes and businesses were flooded,
Oh,
vehicles.
yeah.
Like it's going
There
to be
was,
expensive.
oh my goodness. So, as there's going to be an investigation on what happened in Calgary with the water main break, there's also now going to be an investigation in Toronto
Yes.
around why did people, given the rainfall, leave the DVP open? So the entire DVP in Toronto was completely flooded with cars submerged into water. Like, could you imagine that? It's like climate change in all its fury in a span of 2 to 4 hours across the GTHA, where there was flooding on, quiet residential streets. And people in Toronto on paddle boards on major roads because the level was so high.
Has the DVP, the Don Valley Parkway, ever flooded before?
Yeah, I believe it has. There was another major flood that happened. I think it was like back in maybe 10 years ago, maybe going back a little bit
But
more.
it's not something that happens all the time. Like it's
No,
not
no,
normal. Yeah.
no. And this was like yesterday, rain, like a downpour of rain, 2 to 4 hours, flooding everything. And then by the afternoon, it was sunshine, as if nothing had happened. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, I mean, there are things that we can do to prepare for all of these situations, but it takes political leadership
Yeah.
and lots of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of planning and political will to get these things done. So we'll have to see what happens.
For sure. Yeah.
So tell me, for anyone who's not, so I mean, I think you're kind of like, you know, you're you're a pretty visible, I would say, counselor in Ontario politics. Maybe for not all of like, and it's because you've shone a light on the abuse and harassment
Hmm.
that women in politics,
Hmm.
yourself as a municipal councillor have
Hmm.
faced.
Hmm.
And I wish that wasn't the case, but it's where we are right now.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's been the case for even before. It's always been the case, sadly.
yeah, it's always been the case, but it's
Sad.
more, right? It's
It's
more
more
right now.
visible now because I
Yes.
think that from my personal experience, I had had enough, like receiving in the mail where my female staff are opening a letter that says that I deserve to be raped and killed, or on social media, people revealing my home where I live, or threatening my son, or, taking quotes out of Handmaid's Tale, Gilead, and like using words of God against me in very threatening ways. Thou shalt not wear this kind of thing, and thou shalt be conservative in your clothing kind of thing. Like it just got to a point where it was just ridiculous, and the level of misinformation, because it's the harassment, but it's also the taking things out of context, the
Mhm.
misinformation that goes out there as a tool to attack specifically women politicians and make it seem as if they're saying something that they're not, but they use it as a tool. It's like a microaggression.
Mhm.
And then all the way up to straight up explicit threats and harassment that require security to be with me in the garage or police to investigate the threats. Like I had enough, and I had enough of being quiet about it, because in the previous term it was also happening. Certainly during the election of 2022, I had three third party advertisers spewing toxic hate, misinformation, harassment into people's mailboxes so that to prevent me from getting elected. And I kept quiet. And so I decided that it's now time to call it out. Like enough is enough, and it's not okay. I'm going to own it. I'm going to own this horrible treatment of myself, but also I know experienced by other elected women, and share it publicly. And so on International Women's Day, together with Councillor Brar, we gave the speeches we did. And it was good timing because the Barbie movie had come out, and there was a lot of parallel sort of remarks in that monologue and some of the things that I was personally and have experienced. And ever since I've called it out, Sarah, and I encourage all women to call it out, especially if you're an elected municipal official, just call it out. Ever since I've done that, it started to die down. And people are starting to think twice. Not only are they starting to think twice about what they're saying and doing towards me that's toxic and other women, but it also helps us. It helps us in that now people expect it. Right?
To be called out.
People expect to be that they're going to be called out, and residents who hear the smears, who hear the harassment and hear the toxicity through social media or through the news or whatever, will stop and say, oh, that's what Rowena's talking about. That's horrible. And then you start to build this swell of support.
Yeah. Well, I think there, broadly speaking, there are two camps of people. Like, one, which is don't say anything about it, just ignore it. Don't give them any attention. And it'll go away. Or you just need to learn to live your life with that. Right. And then I think there's a smaller group of people, yourself included, and including me, who are absolute, why? Why should we tolerate this? I think that ignoring it actually normalizes it. And, in the same way that, if you're you have a child, right? And they're running around a restaurant or something, or throwing food, and you'd be like, you know what? We're in a restaurant, and you know what? We can talk about your feelings and work through this, but we don't throw food, right? I honestly think that we have to go back a step and think and be like, you seem to have fallen, you as an adult, because it's adults, right? You have gone to a place where I think you've forgotten what is appropriate and what's not, right? And so calling it out is like saying, this isn't appropriate. There may be consequences, and you just can't do this.
Yeah. And I think that over the years, it's gotten worse for us as women, particularly in elected office, because of social media, because of the keyboard warriors who you can't see, to their face. I know the usual suspects in Brampton who do this to me on social media all the time. I know exactly who they are. I see them at the farmers markets. I see them at city events. But the stuff that they spew out on social media, when they see me in person, they pretend like I don't exist. It's like I'm not even. It's as if they cannot say those
reconcile that you're
face.
Yeah,
right. And so I think there's this open door that social media provides to the haters out there, to the toxic folks out there who are not comfortable with more and more women getting elected, or not. They don't want to say it, so they attack.
Right.
But then when I see them face to face, I even ask them, I approach them. I'm like, hey, Peter, I saw your posts on social media. Do you want to talk about it? No, don't want to talk about it. It's very cowardly and inauthentic, completely inauthentic. And that's how we know that it's not okay. If you can't say something to my face, then I should not take your stuff on social media seriously. And I should also call it out as BS, and call it out as a BS that it is.
Well, and also, do you think, does it help when other people come to your, who have your back and say that this also isn't acceptable?
And that is the other thing, this work that you do, Sarah, and our colleagues who showed up at your shop, and particularly my colleagues, allies, and fellow women alike. at FCM around the entire country. The motion that we passed at FCM regarding, ending the harassment of elected officials because it threatens our democracy. 100% it threatens our democracy. But the allyship, the solidarity of people speaking up about it, hearing other colleagues around the country saying that's actually not okay, and agreeing as an elected community to also call it out on our council tables when that craziness starts to happen in heated debates. That is one of the biggest benefits of making it public. Is that once one of us starts talking about it, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then suddenly it's the whole entire country.
Yeah, I think that allyship is really important because, the more that people are like, well, they don't, I think it's, in the same way that girls are told, when they're being targeted by, a boy, it's like, well, he just likes you, or right. Like, no.
The worst is when they say, oh, well, that's what you were elected for. You're supposed to have thick skin. No, and I'm sorry. No. I have thick skin. I know how thick my skin is. I know how thick the skin is of all my female colleagues around the whole country. We are moms. We are single moms. We have been through adversity. We've given birth. Like you don't need to tell me how thick my skin is. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with what is right, what is civil. It has everything to do with the next generation. It has everything to do with democracy. It has everything to do with policy, not BS. It has everything to do with policy, not personal attacks. Like that is what it's about. So when people say, like you said, to a girl being bullied by a boy, oh, well, he just likes you, or to us as politicians, well, you need to have thick skin. No, we have thick skin. Trust us, we have thick skin. It's not about that. It's actually about this is not okay.
Well, and someone saying that, like, just, well, have thicker skin. Well, you're okay. So you're normalizing this, and it shouldn't be normal.
Correct. It is not normal. And, I would love for someone, I'm sure maybe there's research out there, but if there isn't, somebody should do it, to do the research and see the correlation between the levels of toxicity within various government bodies, various tables, and the correlation between toxicity and the number of women getting elected. Because we have grown, we're not gender parity yet, but our voices are getting stronger. We see the strong, powerful voices in the United States that's south to us. We are seeing more women get elected, and I'm just wondering, if there is some correlation between more women getting elected and the level of hostility that is ensuing within our various bodies of government.
Yeah, that definitely, if that research doesn't exist, which makes me curious now to check to see if it does, but someone, that would be really worthwhile to kind of pull apart, because, I think your goal and mine is to see more women in politics. And if there was a correlation, that would mean that would continue to increase, which is also not what should happen. Right. So you spoke at council with your colleague, your fellow councillor, and then you also did something to bring attention to it that I think is really unusual and really different, and really good. But you took the song "Fighter" by Christina Aguilera, my one of my millennial songs of memory, and you recorded it with a group of women, and your band is called Point of Order, which I think is just absolutely brilliant, because that's a mechanism and a term that's used in politics to call out something that you consider to be inappropriate. Which I think is just lovely. So tell me, like, how did you get to the idea to re-record the song and to do it with so many different women?
Yeah, thank you for that. So Point of Order is my band, and we were named by inspired by that, Robert's Rules of Order, Point of Order, actually through from a council meeting I had where it was like getting very heated and everyone was calling points of order on everyone.
Like on top of each other?
Oh yeah. Like
Oh,
someone called a point of order on somebody's point of order for being out of order. And
okay.
and then the clerk and the chair lost complete control over whose point of order was being called. And I started laughing. I'm like, I'm gonna name my band Point of Order. It's
I
just
think that's
perfect.
amazing.
But every single year, International Women's Day, I produce a music video, usually a cover of a song that inspires me in that year, being a woman elected in politics. And last year, the song we did was Unstoppable by Sia. We did like
Hmm.
an acoustic remake with some changed words in the song, changed lyrics. And then this year, I didn't know. This year, I didn't know what song I was going to do until the harassment started. And, a lot of folks were like, well, you need to do like Rise Up or like something inspirational and slow and I was like, no, I feel like I need to fight. Like I feel like I need to, in calling this stuff out, I actually feel like I need to let some of this frustration and this fight out. And so I was on my Peloton because I ride my Peloton every morning, and the song "Fighter" came up, and I'm like, "This is the song." And I know the song, but sometimes you can't think of a song like right away on the spot.
Mhm.
So I'm like, this is the song. So I started researching, the music around it and how to rearrange it acoustically, and then also, changing the lyrics so that's appropriate to what I've been experiencing, what many have been experiencing with respect to harassment and the resignation of the mayor in Gatineau, Quebec, as well, due to toxicity and harassment. So I did that, and then I said I didn't want to do it alone because I know it's not just me feeling this. And so I invited a bunch of women from different organizations. Some are organizations for addressing gender-based violence, intimate partner violence. Some are doing incredible work with adults with autism. One of them does mental health work. Another one is a well-known business owner. And then I got a very wealthy woman entrepreneur in Brampton to sponsor the entire thing. So we had, and many of them have never sung before. Many of them have never been in a recording studio before. I would just see them because I know them and see them at events 2 weeks before the recording. And I'd go up to them and say, hey, Gwyneth, hey, Marcy, hey, Marlene, I'm doing this thing and we're going to sing Fighter. Do you want to join me? And they're like, yeah, we're going to join you. And so on the spot, it was their first time in that room ever doing anything like that. Some of them, their first time ever meeting each other. And it was just a fantastic experience. They were all into it and we had an amazing time. And so the song Fighter, in the context of how we performed it, was very special, very meaningful for all of us that day.
Do you already have an idea of what your song for next year might be?
No,
No, you'll have to wait and see.
not yet.
Not yet.
I'm taking requests. We'll see. Let's
Oh,
see how this year goes for women in politics. But it's usually inspired or triggered by a personal experience,
right.
and or what I'm hearing from members of the community. So
Mm.
I don't know. Like I'm humming and hawing what it might be. And also, Sarah, it also depends on whether or not I can hit the range in the song. Like there is
Okay.
no way. There is no way I'm gonna do Celine Dion. Like there's no way.
Well,
So folks can just write that off.
yeah, you have to set yourself up for success.
Even Christina Aguilera was a stretch.
Yeah. I mean, Sia would be hard too, to be honest. But
That's where the creative musical arrangement comes into play.
yeah. Well, I think that's such a great way. And I mean, I think it takes, making, lemonade out of lemons,
Hmm.
right? Because I think the people, the keyboard warriors, the people making, these comments who, don't want to say it to your face, but will say it on the internet or behind your back.
Yeah.
I think that their goal isn't, like there's a lot going on, obviously, I think with them because it has like little to nothing to do with you. It has a lot to do with them.
Yeah.
But I think that, like there's an element of the power, right? They want to do this and then they want, you to kind
Yeah.
of just disappear, right? To say, oh, I'm not running again. I just can't handle it.
Yeah.
Or, I'm just not going to talk about this. I'm going to suffer through this abuse, silently. And when you continue to shine a light on it, right? And to take it and use it in a way that they never intended.
Yeah.
Um, I think that is also pushing back in a really important way.
Yeah, and the song, and that's where it's very special too, is that I did change the lyrics in the song, where there are some very pointed lyrics in there that very specifically reference personal experiences. Essentially, those lyrics were changed specifically for those people, and guaranteed that they heard it, that they watched it, and guaranteed that it probably get stopped to make them think, oh, is she talking about me? And in this piece, very similar to what Taylor Swift does, although I'm
Mm-hmm.
no Taylor Swift,
Well,
but similar to
maybe there's something in there for next year.
there is a song that I was considering that she's done recently, which we may do next year. But yeah, it's something interesting. And I think and I don't know if you've spoken about this on any of your podcasts yet. Sadly, some of these attacks, personal attacks, harassment, misinformation, is not just driven by men.
Yes.
It's also driven and caused by other
Women.
women.
Yeah.
And I think, that's an interesting thing for us, for our movement, for we as women to have a serious conversation about. Like I disagree with both men and women alike. I disagree on council sometimes, especially last term. I disagree in public with other women. I disagree with women MPPs. I disagree with women MPs. But just because we disagree does not mean that we hate each other,
Yeah.
does not open the door to what people like to call, when it happens, cat fights. It's men disagree with each other all the time, and so why is that normal? But when women disagree, like it's borderline. Okay, well, I guess we don't support other women. However, there are women who do participate in harassment, who do participate in the misinformation, who are toxic, unfortunately, towards other women. That letter I got in the mail saying that I deserve to be raped and and killed was from a woman. That was from a woman. And the social media posts that refer to, passages from Gilead and Handmaid's Tale related to what I was wearing in God, that was from a woman. And so I think internally, we as a movement, we as a women need to think about how we deal with that. Like, where is that coming from?
Well, actually, I want to go back and double check the age that it happens, but I read something that was really interesting that I think informs this in a way, because it was around like when kids are pretty little, and not like babies or toddlers, but like young young elementary school age. What I read said that boys are taught to deal with conflict directly with each other, and girls are not taught to do the same thing.
That's so interesting.
And so I think that's like it starts at a really young age. It's about how we are taught to deal with conflict. Like, oh, you're having a problem with Billy, go sort it out yourselves. And then,
Yeah.
if you still can't work it out, come back to me. Whereas, with what I read was that, we don't do the same thing with girls. We
Yeah.
don't tell Sally to go and talk to Jasmine about that same thing. So I think there's like an aspect of that in the gendered aspect of how we treat conflict, starting at very
Mm,
little. But then also the saying like hurt people,
yeah.
right? I think there's a lot of that as well as adults, is that dysregulation piece.
Yeah.
But yeah, we definitely, and I mean, I have talked about it in different ways. I've never done a standalone podcast on it, but yeah, but women in politics, as well as just women in society, we can be way worse to each other than men can
Yeah.
be. Like
It's true.
men can, we know all the things that they do. But women can also do the same things. Like
Yeah.
they can cut you down. They can, say the worst things. Probably not to your face, but behind your back, right? And this idea of you can disagree. That doesn't mean you need to be like enemies, right?
Yeah.
Or
Totally.
so but that's something that, within I think the feminist movement and women in political movement it's something that doesn't get talked about, right? Because
Yeah.
it's harder. I think it's stickier, trickier to talk about than just being like, this is these are the issues that women in politics face from men, right?
Right. Yeah.
Rather than
Yeah.
dealing within our own circles. Because I can
Yeah.
even say within the movement of women in politics, have I been bullied by other women? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
By women who claim to be, about women supporting women and empowering women in politics and advocating for women in politics. Yes. It's happened to
Yeah.
me too. Right.
Yeah.
But we don't talk about it and we don't call it out because we're women, I guess. I don't like, there's a lot to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. It's almost like protecting the movement as well.
Yeah.
Like you don't want
There's
to talk
also
about
that,
it,
right? Yeah.
but I think that, and thanks for bringing up that research about women, girls at a young age, not understanding how to resolve conflict or just being
Well, it's
quiet
because
about
that's
it.
how that's what they're taught, right? I have to go back and I have to like, find the source of it. But in the same, there's so many things that happen at such at young ages for girls where it's
Yeah.
like where confidence drops off, right? Where all of
I'm
these
so
things
happy you
happen at
brought
a
that
really
up.
young.
So happy. So I just came from a meeting because I'm working with a girls soccer club and I matched them today. And this woman in Brampton who is producing a program and curriculum specifically around building confidence and self-esteem for this age group, the critical age group of 10 to 14. That's such a critical age for girls. And matched her with her program, which is confidence building and self-esteem. It's like an 8-week program with this all girls soccer club, because for exactly what you pointed out is this confidence at that age. But I'm now, because of you, Sarah, I'm going to also recommend that we include something in the program related to dealing with conflict.
Yeah, I think
Because I
that's
think you're
amazing.
right. Yeah.
How
Yeah.
you
Dealing
deal
with
with conflict starting at a young age, rather like don't go and tell your other friend that this girl did this. Go to
yeah.
that girl and say, when you did this, I felt right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, we have to teach like these are like the part of the systemic things that I think we need to address, right? It
Mhm.
is really as basic as, in the same way we need to call out people's bad behaviors, inappropriate behaviors on a line, we also need to give kids the tools to be able to address and understand these issues. So when they're adults, they don't do these things. They're better
Yeah.
prepared to navigate conflict, relationships, the internet, whatever it may be, right? So
Mhm.
that really younger years intervention, so
Yeah.
that hopefully the world is filled with more people who are, able to understand what emotional regulation is, how to manage conflict, personal relationships, boundaries, all of these different things.
Yeah.
Because I feel like where I am as a 41-year-old with 5 and almost 7-year-old is that like I'm having to teach myself this because I wasn't taught it.
Mhm.
They are in a position now where they're growing up in a world where they are getting taught more of this.
Right.
But in order for that to continue, I think we have to continue educating ourselves and educating them and changing the systems so that future generations of kids get it too.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like, when things like this, whether that's conflict resolution and having the confidence to deal with conflict at such a young age, or self-esteem programming, especially for girls, in the region of Peel at our last council meeting, and to all my other colleagues around the country who might be listening right now, human trafficking of girls is getting younger and younger. Like in Peel Regional Police came to our council meeting on Thursday, just this last week, Thursday, and said that they're being groomed starting at grade 5.
By
And
who?
and by I don't know, boys or people from high school, I would imagine, like older grades, or who knows
People
who.
in their lives, different people in their
Yeah, people
lives.
in their lives. And
Yeah.
it's because at that age, 10 to 14, these girls, they aren't given those tools about self-esteem or
Yeah.
confidence. And then they're being dictated by social media or learning it on social media. And they become vulnerable to such
Well,
things.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing, giving girls the tools to be confident and have value and self-esteem and worth. I mean, those are all kind of the same thing, but at younger ages, and then maintaining that right through
Mhm.
those really pivotal years. So like you can see I would imagine the knock-on effects for anyone listening to this and you and I is like, you can imagine, right?
Yeah.
I'm just looking at it. So yeah, there's the confidence drops by 30% between the ages of 8 to 14, starting at
There
age
you
8.
go. There you
Um,
go.
so up until age 8, there's no gap in confidence levels between boys and girls, but starting at 8, 30% drop.
There you
And
go.
at age 8 to 14, I mean, those are really tough years for
Hmm.
girls growing
Oh
up,
yeah.
right? Getting your period, your body starting to change, right? Like, I didn't grow up thankfully with the internet, but like all of these things, what you're seeing, what people are saying, what people are wearing, what other people like, it's just so much. It's so
Hmm.
much. So like, how do we make girls as resilient, like not resilient in a way that like we have to change the world and we also need to make ourselves resilient, right? Because I think
Yeah.
in some ways it's kind of like like, oh, you're afraid of walking down the street. Let me market you this device where you can pull a cord and then this loud alarm will go off. And no, like I want a
No.
world where women and girls can walk through it
Yeah.
without being afraid, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I have this every International Women's Day. It's in my music video. It was in my speech, the saying every single year or any opportunity I have speaking with other women and girls, which is take your place, own the space, and do it with style, humor, smarts, and grace. And as a martial artist, so I have done Taekwondo, I've done karate, I've done Muay Thai, have a black belt in Muay Thai. There is something to be said about a woman's safety and how she walks confidently and how
Mm,
she carries herself that speaks volumes to anyone on the prey. And I'm not saying that that's the solution, but when you feel grounded, when you are owning the space and the area that you're walking in, you become less of a you become less vulnerable to those who are looking for people who are vulnerable. And so there's a lot to be said about that. But I'm excited about this program that we're going to be launching in Brampton. And then the other thing I wanted to share, because I don't know if anyone else is listening who might want to do the same thing. I know you're going to love this, Sarah. So I'm
mm.
going to do something new for International Day of the Girl.
Okay.
October 11th is International Day of the Girl. I'm starting a program encouraging girls to answer a question or submit an application to be counselor for a day.
Oh, that's great.
And it'll be counselor for a day to celebrate International Day of the Girl. And whomever is selected for a counselor for the day with me will also have an opportunity to sit through beside me in the council chamber an entire council meeting.
I love
So
it.
we're gonna like have her have a chair beside me, and my council colleagues will be all over it, supporting it, and she will be able to sit there with me and see what it's like.
That's amazing. Well, I mean, I think that kind of experience is like life changing, right? In terms of exposure. Like I didn't grow up in a political family. Like no one talked about politics, right? It was only because of a teacher that I was exposed to it. And, I think for someone like, for kids like me who didn't grow up, that could be that moment that really kind of opens up a whole new world to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So that's it. The new thing. I'm so excited. I'm excited to do it. I'm excited to showcase all these incredible girls interested in politics. And providing that, it's making space at the table.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's really important. And I actually did a podcast that came out a few weeks ago with a woman named Rachel Gilmore, who's a PhD student at the U of T. And her thesis is on youth and political consultation.
Nice.
Yeah. And I think that's like a whole new, I mean, because that's like, a whole separate conversation around, you know, giving kids the franchise to advocate for themselves, right? Because they go through the world, they experience the world's, the regulated government world on them, but they don't have a say in any of those ways, and they can be the users of programs, right? Or the
Yeah.
programs, touch their lives, but we don't ask kids how that program would, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We stakeholder groups almost never include children, right?
No.
Unless it's a program specifically about children.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. I would love to see that research too, because I do a lot of work with young people. I have a very active youth council that's led by youth as well. And it's amazing what happens when you actually engage them. So I'll give you an example. I had this 11-year-old boy called Jacob who wrote this detailed email to me saying that he had a problem with his local park, that he didn't like the wood chips, that there was no soccer net, that the playground was old. And it was like very well articulated. Not only did he provide that information, but then showed and did research on possible solutions on what it could be.
Yeah, that's
So
amazing.
I met them, and then and now they're engaged in the entire process and will be contributing together with the other kids in the neighborhood, providing feedback on the playground replacement. And we got them their soccer nets, and the kid, like he follows up regularly to say, hey, just want to follow up. When are we going to do that consultation?
That's amazing. I mean, even if there was a kids parks committee, can you imagine a committee for kids specifically related to parks? They are the ultimate, if not the most common users of public spaces.
Yeah.
Right?
I love that idea. I might take it, Sarah.
Yeah, no, you should. Like, take it. Anyone can. But, they're like, because I would imagine, you go and it's like, oh, we need a new playground. And then someone goes and looks at, the manufacturers of playgrounds. No one asks probably kids, well, would you play with this?
Yeah, not till after the fact.
Right?
When it's installed and the parents and the kids are like, well, my 12-year-old child cannot use this equipment. This equipment is meant for like 2 to 7-year-olds.
Exactly. So the age of it, the materials that are used, the activities that it has, like there's a playground in Calgary that opened like about a year ago. And my kids, we call it like the green playground. It's in a community called Tuxedo. And it is a magnet for people. Every weekend morning, it actually gets so busy. But the way that it was designed, the way that it's accessible, actually, and inclusive, you can tell, there are no horrible wood chips. There are no rocks, right? It's that kind of like soft, right? So a wheelchair could,
Yeah.
anyone can go on it. It's also as an adult, very comforting to my very tired feet. Because it's not hard pavement, right? So if someone falls off, but we don't ask kids what kind of, like, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, what
right?
they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Totally. So
Yeah.
in this case, but I love the idea of opening it up and having a special, outreach initiative to ask the kids themselves,
Well, yeah,
what
I mean, you could
they.
take this, so you could run with this idea, Rowena. You could have a competition where you could get schools in Brampton, right, in different grades, and they could work together either individually or as a class or even as a school to come up with the design of their dreams for the ultimate playground,
Oh yeah, that's
right?
fantastic. Yeah. Yeah.
And you could see, right? And then you could carry it through. So like they could be involved in, thinking about what it would look like and why and how design, would this work for you? Would maybe this wouldn't work for someone else, right? And then and then and then they would, come to account that maybe there's a winner or something, or then the kids get to hear around the decision making from the city process around, like
Yeah.
how that actually comes to be, right?
Yeah. I
I
love
think
it
there's so many opportunities to do things differently.
for
It's
sure.
just
And
about the willingness to do them.
totally. And so at the city of Brampton, I'm chair of community services
Okay.
so it has parks and recreation. And because as chair and because I have a very supportive mayor, we're doing a lot, like some of these creative things, but not this in particular. But all I guess what I'm saying is that I think that our community services team would be open to an idea like this.
Yeah, it would be
And
great.
they're open to a lot of different new ideas and new ways of doing things.
Yeah, I mean, bringing kids in, especially kids who, I think there are some kids who grew up in households where politics is normally discussed, right? And I would say that those households have a different level of privilege typically. And it's very normal to talk about, this is how decisions are made or, the legal aspects of something but I know that doesn't happen in every household. It didn't happen in mine because there were other more serious things that my mom was trying to deal with as a single parent. Right. And so ensuring also that who that group of kids is, right? So it's not just kids who, are always, able to take advantage of opportunities, but also
Yeah.
making sure that there are kids who, again, wouldn't otherwise be at the table. So the table of kids also reflects and represents, the entire community of Brampton.
I love it. I'm going to probably do this in one of my playgrounds in
I
my
love,
area.
please, I would be
Yeah,
delighted.
and I'll let you know how it goes, or I'll keep you
Yeah.
posted.
Yeah.
Because we'll make something out of it for sure. We have a couple of playgrounds that are up for replacement anyway.
Cool.
And I think it's something that, well, Jacob started with this
Yeah.
one playground, but certainly moving forward, it's something that I'm going to test.
Yeah.
For
And
sure.
this conversation started as a result of you sharing that story for him
Mhm.
about him. Right. So like, it's that sharing of stories and just thinking about how we can, things don't always have to be the way they are.
No, and it goes back to our conversation about, sometimes the bureaucracy is set in their ways of doing
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And it's necessary, especially in growing communities, where growth is unprecedented across the country. We have to find new ways of doing things.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Well, I just want to thank you so much for talking with me today. And it was such a pleasure meeting you when you were here in Calgary. And I'm excited to see your journey in politics continue and to keep calling out, the harassment and abuse that you face. And if I can, help you in any way with that, I would be happy to.
Oh, Sarah, thank you so much. And really thank you for all that you do with your shop, with your products, but you as a person. in making sure that our democracy is protected and properly represented, especially when it comes to women in politics and women being elected. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to so many women around the country, and it means a lot to our democracy as a country as well. So thank you.
No, thank you. Okay. Well, I'm going to be staying tuned for updates, playground updates.
All right. Thanks so much. Bye,
Thanks.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.